On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, construction continues, the FNC returns, Staccato gives up on fat magazines, and the double douche. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is episode 329 of the John 1911 podcast, and it has been a hot minute since we've done an episode. This is unfortunately going to be a solo episode. Today is Friday, the 26th of, is that right? Friday the 26th of January. It is 9:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this has been the week of SHOT Show, and unfortunately, we did not go to SHOT Show. I haven't been to SHOT Show in, let's use my paper there. I haven't been to SHOT Show in 14 years, maybe, I guess it is. I used to work it, so unfortunately, the reason we haven't been doing podcasts on the regular is I've been warning everybody for months that, you know, we've got all this construction going on. We're making a lot of changes with the business. And baby, let me tell you, we are full in it now because it is just, I've got construction going on in multiple locations with different crews and different teams. And it's just been a zoo. So over here where I'm currently sitting, I've had construction crews starting at 7 o'clock some morning, 7:30, and as late as 7 or 8 o'clock at night, just banging and making all kinds of noise. So really couldn't do a podcast. So, you know, that's been kind of tough. But, you know, we're hoping things will settle in and we'll be able to get into a more regular podcast schedule, you know, going forward once we get through some of this construction. In interesting news, Kraken actually came to town. He drove in from Nebraska. He was visiting some of his fabulous friends, and that is an inside joke. And we spent a few days here, and, you know, I feel a little bad because I wasn't able to give Kraken the kind of experience that I normally would have liked to have given him because, you know, the armory is destroyed. The John 1911 range is a war zone, and, you know, the reference collection is mostly packed up, can't be gotten to. And on top of that, you know, he was blessed with 5-degree weather. Now, you may think, well, gosh, you know, that's terrible. We were out there for 2 days. It would start at about 5 degrees in the morning, but it would warm up to maybe 18 degrees during the day. And you may think that's terrible shooting weather. Well, you know, Kraken was coming from minus 22 and minus 15. So to him, this was like a balmy vacation. Him coming to Ohio was like most of us going to Florida. It was like a 30-degree, you know, on the upside temperature-wise. So, you know, if you're used to 30 degrees in the Midwest and you go down to Florida and you're at a high 60s, you're like, hey, this is a vacation. So couple things that were interesting that we did. He brought a bunch of guns and we had some fun and you know, shooting some stuff and going over some things. He actually did leave a firearm here for us to mess with, which I thought was very nice. The gun he left is an old gun that isn't available anymore. This gun hasn't been. There's some debate as to maybe they stopped making this gun in, say, the 2000s, early 2000s, but I got my phone's vibrating. Early 2000s, but you know, it might be as late as 2000 and I don't know. There's some debate. This gun hasn't been made in either 20 or 25 years. This is a Ed Brown bolt action rifle. And most people that even own Ed Browns weren't aware that he made bolt action rifles. And the one interesting thing about Ed was Ed was a big hunter, and he, you know, was a machinist. Or he is a machinist. And, you know, he kind of had some ideas on how things should be done. And without doing a deep dive on it, what Ed did is he decided he wanted a bolt action rifle. So he wanted guns with certain features. And the best I can tell, what he did is he took a kind of a Remington 700 action, and the Ed Brown guys, I can already tell, are they're starting to scream. He took a Remington 700 action, and which I think is machined in the round, and then he put two controlled feed extractors on it and put a 3-position safety, just like a Winchester Model 70. And so what's interesting about this gun is it's basically Winchester. As far as I'm concerned, it's a Winchester Model 70. And I'm a Winchester person. Well, I'm really a Blaser person, but as far as turn bolts are concerned, turn bolt guns, I am a Mauser action controlled feed turn bolt type of person. I know that I live in a world of Remington 700s and Accuracy International. I mean, I would probably. I think Accuracy International is probably making the best rifles right now out there. I don't think anybody could really quibble with that, to be honest. But I'm a Winchester guy. There's the things I like about the Winchester guns. I like bolt action guns that when you put them on safe, the action's locked closed. And I've never been a big fan of guns that you can go walking through the hinterlands with, and then you take the gun off your shoulder and your action's open, and you got rounds spilling out or something's gotten into the gun. I've even seen images of Marines with sniper rifles where when they're humping their guns, they literally are tying the actions closed, and I just think that's kind of ridiculous. After that, obviously, controlled feed is a bonus, and then the 3-position safety to me, I just prefer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a lever that sits on the back of the bolt of a Winchester Model 70. It's not like the flag safety that you see on the Mauser 98Ks, and this is it goes horizontally, and so there's a safe position, there's a middle safe, but you can cycle the action, unlock, empty the gun, check the action, load the gun, do what you need to do, but you can't fire the gun. And then obviously you can put it on complete safe and it locks the gun completely up. So, safe, there's fire, and then there's admin in between. And the old Ed Brown guns, they do that. And the gun that Kraken brought, it's an all black gun. It's it's stainless steel action, stainless steel barrel, and it's got a black. I guess it's a Macmillan stock. It doesn't have adjustable cheek piece, and it's I think they call it. I think Ed Brown calls it the A4 tactical. A3 tactical. Maybe it's A3 tactical. I can't remember what but I don't know if it matches up with the Macmillan stock, what they call theirs. Like there's the A3, A4, and the A5. So maybe it's the A3 tactical. But the one thing with this gun, is a Shylin barrel. And it's in 300 Win Mag. This barrel is, I guess, according to Kraken, it is called a heavy taper barrel. And yeah, I mean, this thing is, I mean, I'd say it's the biggest downside to the gun, in my opinion, is the barrel is way too heavy. It kind of makes it's way, 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 way too heavy. It's in 300 Win Mag, so that you appreciate that weight. But this barrel is just, good God, it is. I mean, it's just like trying to, hold a rifle with a giant oak tree hanging off the front of it. It's just, you just have to see it. Also, so, this gun comes from a time when everybody was basically like, the heavier barrel is the more accurate barrel. And while that isn't really true, I know we all kind of understand where they were coming from. And so, if this barrel ever got shot out, I think it would benefit from, having a new barrel put on it. Also, interestingly enough, with this gun, because, Ed built these guns with his own proprietary action, I don't know if he did it with, like, if he's got like a short action or a long action, but this gun, even though it's a 300 Win Mag, it's not a long action. It's its own proprietary length. And so when Kraken was trying to get scope bases for this thing. He just would try to get some Remington 700 scope bases, and they wouldn't fit. They were off, and he had to find a company that actually would custom make bases for this gun. So, it's one of those things. If you source one of these guns, be aware that you're going to have a custom, scope base made for it. Some other guns he brought a Mini 14, and he set it up with this binary trigger that we can, we filmed it. I don't know if we'll publish it. Maybe we'll put it on the website. I think that might be too hot to handle for YouTube, but he was showing me his binary trigger setup. I mean, it's kind of a joke, and it's binaries, it's kind of trash, but as cheaply as his binary trigger costs, I thought it was pretty interesting. He also brought a bunch of Smith & Wesson pistols, and I can't remember. That's all Greek to me. I can't remember what the what the model numbers are, or what the I have to look at the videos. We took some pictures and we did film some videos. We were having some video issues, also because it's very windy. And then, we had I have a new camera and a microphone. And for some reason, like, we were filming the Ed Brown bolt action gun, and it just, like, I don't know, after 18 minutes, it just stopped recording. And it was just like, I don't know what the hell that was about, but I looked at the camera and I'm like, I didn't turn it on, and, and I checked, and of course I had. So, I don't know if any of this is going to be publishable, and I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to maybe explain myself a little bit as to where we're going and what's been going on. So I guess the big news this week that I guess we're going to be covering, I mean, I have to cover some of it. There's been a lot of activity on the website, is SHOT Show 2024. Now, I'm just like you. I don't go to SHOT Show anymore. I may go to SHOT Show again one day, but it's just not on my immediate to-do list. I mean, obviously this year it would never be an option. We're just, we're way too busy with all the stuff with the business and moving everything in construction. But, I am watching the media, seeing what's popping up, anything that catches, my interest. The reality is most stuff that shows up at SHOT, it's like, yawn. And I don't mean it like when I'm not trying to be like one of these people that they're talking about the gun industry, or they're in the industry, talk about they put down all the stuff, or they're better than all the stuff. I'm not trying to be that guy, but just a lot of it, we already own it, or it's just just not something that really applies to us. I mean, as a general rule of thumb, we don't really care about 2011s. Don't really care too much about the AR-15s, unless maybe there's some interesting retro gun AR-15 that might interest us. Some of the older reproduction stuff is definitely going to be on our radar. Possibly some scope stuff that's going to be on radar. And what would be the other thing? I guess like thermal is something that we were keeping an eye out for. But, generally stuff has to really kind of blow up my skirt to get my attention. And, there were a couple things. I've kind of made a list of a couple things that I think that, are worth mentioning. So one of them is Smith & Wesson has come out with, Lipsy's. Let's bring it up here. Lipsy's has come out with a limited run with Smith & Wesson, obviously, and it's their little J-frame revolvers, just like some of the ones you've seen us shoot lately on our social media, and they're calling this the Ultimate Carry J-frame, and it's like, that's, kind of a pushy name, but it is essentially a 642 or a 442 type gun. They are let's see, what are they? There's two of these that they've got. One's in 38 Special, and one of them is in 32 H&R Magnum. And the H&R Magnum is a 6-shot, which I thought was really interesting. But these guns, they have high-vis sights that have a pin in them, so you can easily remove them. They have a dovetail rear sight, so you can adjust it. Let's see what else they have here. There was so it's an XS tritium sight. They've got the adjustable rear, the yeah, obviously VZ grips or whatever they are. But what was interesting was the 32 H&R Magnum is a 6-shot, and I think you can put 32 Smith & Wesson and 32, is it short? I can't remember what it is. But you can actually, like you got 44 Magnum and, 44 Special or 357 Magnum or 38 Special. With the 32 H&R, you've got the Magnum loadings that you can do with some of the, I think even one of the big ammo manufacturers makes a really good self-defense loading for the 32, or you can do the downloaded stuff. And I just like, that's pretty interesting. So they've got them in. So they got a black 32 H&R. They have a black 38 Special. They have a stainless 32 H&R and a stainless 38 Special. And what are the big front? A couple things that this is worth definitely. They're aluminum framed. They have the charge holes on all of these guns are chamfered from the factory, so it's easier to like load in wad cutters. And it's like I love that. They've beveled the front of the cylinder, and I don't know if that's a normal thing, on these revolvers, if that's like considered an upgrade, but it is what it is. And let's see what else was there. Little boot grip, but I just thought this was an interesting gun, and it was worth checking out. I mean, are we going to buy one? These are MSRP for $759. No, we're not going to buy one new, but it's going to be just like the 351. I kept an eye out for the 351 for years until I ran across one used, and then, we picked it up. And so that's going to be the same thing on these 32s, because it's just not a primary gun for us. But, we keep a running list of things for the reference collection. And, a 32, I think, kind of really could, float our boat. Another product, let's close that one. Another product that has come out is, I guess there's two products. Beretta has announced they're calling it a Mod 2 1301 shotgun. So they're Beretta 1301, and it has some upgrades. I guess it's got all metal sights. They've upgraded the forearm to more aggressive texturing, and it puts some M-lock embedded in the forearm, which I thought was pretty cool. And then what they've done is they've got a, what is it? What do they call that? It's the shell lifter, or the the elevator. It's some kind of upgraded part that actually, when the gun is in battery, the lifter stays elevated, so you can much more easily thumb rounds into the gun. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And we've been talking a little bit more about shotguns and shooting more shotguns, and there's a reason for that. And if you pay attention, I think a lot of you will be quite interested in seeing what's coming with us regarding shotguns once we get through some of this construction. On top of shooting more 1911s, shooting the Swiss sniper, and not the Quigley gun, the Shiloh Sharps gun. Yeah, we're behind on all these projects. But there was I can't remember what it's called, but there's a company that makes accessories for the 1301. Is it Aridus? They've got heat shields. So you see heat shields for shotguns like trench guns, and typically what you'll see is, they're these metal guards that are like cheese graters, and as you're working a pump action shotgun, your fingers are sliding right next to those guards, and there's a potential, depending on if they're not fluffed right, they could cut you open. Well, in semi-automatic shotguns, if you're trying to control recoil and you're shooting fast, a lot of people, and myself included, will roll your thumb over the barrel to try to keep the recoil impulse, from the shotgun moving, keep the sight plane down in your vision for follow-up shots. Well, you're laying your thumb right across on a hot barrel. Well, this company, Artis, has come up with they're the company that I guess is for these Beretta guns. They've got some kind of hardware that allows you to put it's an AK forend called the Zhukov. I have to remember. I always have to remember the general, the Russian general, Zhukov. And so there's this it's an AK forend, and so this thing will fit on this 1301. Well, now they have this heat shield that I guess clips into the top of the Zhukov, so you can lay your thumb across this plastic cover that encloses the barrel on these Berettas, and so you can run these things as hot as you want, and you're not going to burn your fingers. And I thought, that's pretty interesting. Definitely worth worth looking at. And it's like, you've never seen a 1301 around here. Why am I talking about 1301s? That would be a clue. Another thing I guess we need to talk about, it's worth mentioning, and, I kind of go back and forth on this gun. Daniel Defense has decided to make a pistol, and I guess this was the biggest, well-known secret in the industry, but I wouldn't be in a position to know any secrets. Daniel Defense, I guess, had bought the IP from Cy Hudson, the people who made the Hudson H9 pistol. And, that company went out of business. I've heard different stories. I know the people that bought those guns, especially the ones that sent the guns to Hudson for repair work, and so apparently up to 80 of those people I've heard didn't get their guns back, so they're super unhappy, which, I don't hold that against them. But I know that the Hudson people had a bunch of issues with outside vendors and maybe some decisions and, bottlenecks. And, long story short, making guns is hard. Starting a new gun company is hard. Having your own proprietary designs is super hard. And, with all that being said, Cy Hudson, to me as a kid, fun fact, I met him when he was in the Army. I don't know if I could have picked him up out of a lineup, but once it was brought to my attention, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember him and his group, and he wouldn't be able to pick me out of a lineup either. But he seemed like a perfectly nice guy. But I think I'm saying all that to say this. I think the H9 pistol, I think they did a good job with the gun. Even though I guess there were a lot of parts breakages, but just considering what they were doing, I think they did a pretty good job with the gun. And when the company crashed, from a business perspective, you've got a brand, and then you've got your accounts receivable, your book, and then you've got something called IP, your intellectual property. And I guess when they dissolved the company, I don't know how it was all adjudicated officially because I didn't follow it, but I guess Daniel Defense purchased the IP. They purchased the rights to this gun, to this H9 pistol. And they've apparently been working on this gun for a while. Now, if you look, I don't know what because there's a whole group of these H9 dudes out there that are just, they're little cult following guys, and there's, I think, KE Arms and some of these other people, they're making parts for these guns. And, I know that there's a big difference between the original Hudson H9 and this new gun that Daniel Defense, their first pistol ever, they've released it. They call it the Daniel H9. There is, if you look at the gun, if you look at it, you're like, yeah, that's a Hudson. But if you look at it next to an original Hudson, you realize there's been a lot of changes to this gun. And they have even Daniel Defense has come out and admitted that I think there's only one or two parts of this gun that could even interchange with the original H9. So that's probably a good thing, because supposedly a lot of stuff was breaking on these original H9 guns. However, how gun people are, and there's going to be this whole stratification. Dudes, these gun dudes, especially dudes that don't shoot, they do this, and there's going to be an attempt by people that are incentivized to drive the price of Hudsons up, to say, well, I've got a real Hudson. This isn't a real Hudson. I haven't read this. I haven't heard this. I haven't seen this. But I don't have to get onto a gun forum to know what these people are going to do. And so the question is, I'm telling you about the Daniel Defense H9, and we have been interested in acquiring a Hudson H9, just as a reference gun because it is a unique gun, the way the recoil system is set up and some of the things. But a lot of it is they've gotten kind of stupidly priced. Well, this should take a lot of that pressure off those prices, because if you want one that works, in theory, you would probably want a Daniel Defense gun. And so the question would be, would we want, if we do buy a Hudson or a H9, we'll call it the H9, which one would we prefer? Would we want the original Hudson H9, or would we prefer the Daniel H9? Honestly, since there are two versions of this gun out there, I would rather have the Daniel Defense gun, the new gun, because I have more faith that the gun will work, and I have more faith that I can get parts for it, and there's service, and it's probably a flushed out design. If you look at the Daniel H9 and you take them at face value that they've been testing these guns and shooting these guns. And I have every reason to believe that these guns are getting shot quite a bit, because it was like 8 o'clock, whatever morning, you could tell the embargo lifted, and it seemed like everybody but us, we're not gear reviewers, everybody but us had one of these guns. Like, it wasn't, they were, I think, I'm not going to say who it was, but there's one of these gun YouTuber dudes, and he's got a picture of the gun. He's talking about it, and you could tell he's like, oh, if you're seeing this video, this gun has been released. And he's filming this video, and it looks like it's the freaking summer. So, dudes have been shooting these guns out there in the wild for a while, and it's going to be really interesting to see, is this gun reliable? Does it hold up? As far as what the sales pitch is of the H9, like, so it's so flat, it's the low bore axis. I'm sure some of that's true, but you get into degrees of what actually makes a difference versus what doesn't make a difference. And I saw one of these gun tuber videos, and this dude shooting this H9, and I don't know, he must have the grip of like I don't know, like a piano player or something. I don't know. Piano is good. That's not a good example. He must have a grip of a wet noodle. I don't know. But that gun was like recoiling up in his hands. And I'm like, are you trying to limp wrist that gun? I'm like, this is supposed to be some gun. It's like, it's really, really on target. Like the sight picture. And, what I guess the point I'm making is, you can hype a lot of this, about, it's so great and so fast and so whatever, but it's still just a 9mm. Like, let's not oversell this. It's I think it's interesting. I hope the gun is successful. Okay, look, let me just say this. Talking about SHOT Show, all right? Everybody's got the, SHOT Show comes out, second tier company that we've all heard of, and there's 15 of these companies. Second tier company, we have the new gun, and it's the kick-ass pistol, and all these guns are just Glock Gen 3 clones, because the Gen 3, obviously you can tell the Gen 3 patents have run out, and so now everyone's just copying the Glock Gen 3, and it's like, well, they're all kind of the same, Daniel Defense could have just done a Glock gun. And I just think it's interesting that they put the money and the time to go a different route. They've got, they have some kind of proprietary magazine for this gun. It's a proprietary mechanism. It's all custom parts. They're not able to the OEM this out to some company that's making other H9 parts. I don't think. Maybe, but I seriously doubt it. And you've got to give it to them for coming out with a totally new gun. Just like I give Wilson Combat a lot of credit for coming up with a totally new gun with the X9. As a new gun from the ground up, magazines and everything. And this H9, this Daniel Defense, Daniel H9, yeah, we're interested in it and picking one up. We're not going to pay over retail. Website says MSRP is $12.99. So maybe street would be, after it settles down, I don't know, maybe $1,100, maybe $9.99 if you get them on the street. It's a possibility. If I'm going to say something about these guns that, objectively speaking, I've never seen one in person, I've never held one. If I wanted to be critical of the gun, just looking at a picture of it, I would say this. This is the American Steyr M9. The Steyr M9. The Steyr pistols. They make them new. You can tell that the Hudson, as it's starting to morph, it's turning into the Steyr. And it's like, I don't know. I wonder how long it'll be until the media kind of wakes up and picks up on that idea. But yeah, Hudson H9, or the Daniel H9, were a buyer. Hudson H9, it would have to be a stupid cheap price, because every time we would try to shoot that gun, it's just chances going to break and it'd be impossible to get parts for it. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Speaking of magazines, I don't know if I should, be one of those things where it's like I beat my chest and I say I told you so, or it's just like it's about time. It looks like Staccato. Let's get rid of this. Open this up here. Staccato has come out with a new gun. Staccato is the 2011 company. You can officially call a Staccato a 2011 because they own the trademark on the name 2011. So they have a new gun. It's like all their other guns, called a Staccato C, and it's a 9mm. This looks like they're trying to build it as a compact gun. Looks like a Glock 19, I guess, size, maybe just a hair smaller. Not really all that certain. Let's see here. The Staccato C is a 4-inch pistol, all-purpose handgun, concealed carry, small enough. A couple things they've done, which I think are interesting, because this is really, let me set this up. So we probably have people that are listening that aren't aware that I'm one of these folks that has been, tilting at this windmill for a long time. The 2011 pistol sucks, and it's got a lot of, when I say 2011, I don't mean Staccato. I mean all the 2011s, the real guns that used the format of the 2011. And the fundamental weakness and problem with these 2011 guns is, when they're starting off, they're over-railed and over-lugged for 9mm. And people have been making changes and dealing with some of that. The extractor location for the internal extractors for these guns, especially for how a traditional magazine presents the round into these 2011s, it can be a little finicky and a little hard to get that extractor to grab that rim. Like the location of all that could be an issue. But the fundamental basic structural weakness of all these 2011 guns is, you have a 45 caliber overall length magazine and a subsequently 45 caliber overall length frame that's stuffed with 9mm rounds, or you could say 38 Super, but 38 Super is the same overall length. So it makes these guns horrendously fat. It also it makes the magazines fragile, and just how the magazine is this, where the magazine presents the round and how it, feeds into the chamber. It's not a straight in thing. All you have to do is, the most famous one, but take any most modern pistols, but take a Beretta 92 and just lock the slide open and put a magazine in it and look at that round sit at the top of that magazine, and it literally just goes straight across into that chamber. Well, if you got 45, if you're building a gun using 45 ACP dimensions and you're putting a 9mm round in it, you're having a lot of compromises, and that's just the fundamental weakness of these 2011s. 2011 generic term, not just Staccato. A lot of companies, not a lot, some companies have done things to get around that. An example I've given before is Wilson Combat. They decided to build a whole new gun from the ground up, and they had to get rid of that crappy 2011 magazine. And so they came up with their own tube. Well, they say they actually got the tube from Walther. I mean, they say that. So they're not stealing it. But it's a 9mm design tube. So it's 9mm overall length, 9mm width. It's a double stack magazine. And so then they were able to shrink the frame, and they were able to make those X9 guns much smaller. And they use an external extractor, and the round presents higher, so it feeds straighter, and the extractor's bigger, and just there's all kinds of goodness there. But a lot of people that don't understand gun design, if you're just a 1911 guy and you're like, ugh, I have to buy new magazines. It was stupid. Why they should use the 2011 magazine? It's like, because you don't understand that 2011 magazine is dog shit. And that's been the big complaint with these 2011s for a long time. Well, it looks like Staccato is giving up the ghost on this. And this is going to be super interesting to watch how this ping-pongs through the 2011 industry. Because right now, there's people. I'm shitting on these 2011 magazines, okay? And there are 2011 people listening to this conversation right now, and they're saying, "I don't know what I'm talking about. Just buy MBX mags," or "I don't know what I'm talking about. Buy this $100 magazine or an $80 magazine or $130 magazine." And it's like, that is not the answer to the problem, because number one, you know how fragile your mags are. They don't last forever. I've got EDC X9 magazines. I've got my same original 2 or 3 magazines that I use. I've got over 11,000 rounds for that gun, and that thing gets dropped in gravel and reloaded and slammed hard. Anyone that's seen my X9L gun knows I run that pitch. And 2011 magazines, you can't get away with that. You're replacing magazines all the time, and you got to watch them. They're real fragile. Glock guys don't have these problems. PPQ guys don't have these problems. MMP guys don't have these problems, but these 2011 guys, their magazines and their feed lips and this and that. It looks like Staccato is coming out with a new magazine, and they've got a gun that this magazine won't work on the other guns. So let's see what they're showing. This gun is, they're building it. It's got an external extractor. They're saying it has a wide frame, which I don't know what that's supposed to mean, because it's going to be a smaller. Or that's the side of the thing. Slim, short, and compact. And this gun definitely looks thinner than a traditional 2011 gun. And then they even admit, they show a picture of the magazine head on, dedicated 9mm magazine, slimmer, 9mm specific, precision built magazine, enhances functionality for reliable results. That is true, but it also stops having to make these frames retarded big, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here, and people get tired of me saying it. If you don't want to understand all the things that I'm trying to tell you, go to your gun store, look at a Glock 20 or a Glock 21. So either the Glock 40 full-size Glock 45 ACP gun or the full-size Glock 10mm gun. And then pick up a Glock 17, okay, which is a 9mm handgun. And then, imagine them trying to sell you a Glock 20 or a Glock 21 sized gun with 9mm rounds in it. and it has that big fat magazine, that big fat frame, and you're like, why would I do that? Even if I could get one or two more rounds in the gun, I'd rather have the Glock 17. You literally have just described the entire 2011 market. And this is why you keep seeing, the Quest, like the one company that's got the quote 2011 in air quotes that takes the Glock magazines. There's the one that we picked up that takes the SIG P320 magazines, which, I think is smart, because that you would think that's going to be a standard magazine in the future if these 320s stop blowing up. But neither here nor there. But I think the pressure is definitely on, with all these different companies trying to quote make 2011s that don't use it, that aren't hindered by these crappy magazines, and even Staccato's giving up the ghost. And I just wonder if in the future you're going to start seeing, like, I don't know, like, how this would work, like, IP wise. Could a full custom company like Chambers Customs, Joe Chambers, right? He doesn't make his own frames. You guys know that, right? He doesn't, he doesn't machine his own frames. He doesn't have a forge. He buys those from somebody to his spec, whatever that is, and then he fits them. Well, can Joe Chambers or some of these other full custom shops start ordering frames in a smaller size to take this official Staccato smaller magazine and not violate the IP? I don't know. But it's coming. So within 10 years, you will probably see, two types of 20. I just bumped the microphone. Two types of 2011s. You'll see the fat ones, and then you'll see ones that are skinny. And if you don't want to have to sit in all this drama and figure out which is which and decide where to put your money, just buy a Wilson EDC X9L and skip the problems. Okay, the next thing that has come up at SHOT Show that just totally blew my hair back, and what really surprised me, was nobody major got it until after this one guy, a smaller guy who has been out of the business for a while, popped up with. So there's a company called Pindad Arms, and I don't know if they're in Malaysia or Indonesia, or Indonesia. And they are a legally licensed manufacturer of the FNC rifle. And they have shown up at SHOT Show with brand new, and these are not, how do I say this? These are not like clones. These are real. Like, these are authorized by FN to their specs, probably with their tooling, because they've been making these guns for years. FNC rifles, and you can't get FNC guns. They haven't been, FNC guns haven't been brought in the States since probably '89. We have one. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the FNC guns are, a cheap one now was $5,000. I've seen them as high as 6 or 7 for semi-automatics. Never mind that you can if you can get the auto sears, you can legally convert them to full auto. There's been some recent developments that Mongo's brought to my attention about converting ours, and the chances we'll be able to do that. But neither here nor there. It's, you can't get these guns. And the argument was, well, some point, someday, maybe these countries that run the FNC, Indonesia being one of them, maybe somebody will just bring in, parts kits, and we'll be able to get parts kits for the FNCs. Oh no, this Pindad Arms company, they're making them brand new. They're bringing them in as pistols. And so you can get one factory as a pistol and then SBR it, and you're ready to rock. And it's like, oh my God. I don't know what this thing's going to cost, but we're going to buy one. Even though we have an original FNC, one of the arguments I've even had here on this podcast was, if I somehow can find a way to convert legally, the FNC 2 full auto, would I end up just having to go out and have to buy another FNC so I can have a semi-auto? Because I think there's going to be an argument of there'll be more full auto FNCs than there will be semi-auto FNCs because there's just only so many of them, and they're going to be so expensive. It's like I'd probably end up having to have 2 of them. Well, this solves my problem. So not only can I, if I decide I want to turn my pre-89 FNC as a sear host for full auto, not only if I can do that, but then I can now still have a semi-auto that I just register as an SBR. Don't have to worry about the gas and all that kind of stuff because it's a pistol. I mean, that's the shit. I mean, this is just like, wow. Talk about we live in a great time for guns in this country. That is unbelievable. And, you know, the only thing I'm worried about is the price. Like the SIG, the company that is it, the company that brings in the SIG 550 series guns from Switzerland, and you know they're $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and it's just like, nah, we're not paying that. You know, this is not going to be a cheap gun. I don't know, but like they've been making them for 30 years, so it's not going to be. I mean, I don't know how expensive it's going to be. I don't know. I mean, maybe they could price them more competitively, or maybe they're going to want to go for maximum dollars, and maybe they'll price them for $4,000. 4,000, I have to be honest, might be a little tough to swing because we don't even pay that for the one that we have that is pre-89 import. And I know I've got that old man disease, or like back in the day I could buy a candy bar for $0.25. But you know, if we can get these guns for under $3 or $2.99, and then with some tax, we'd buy one, especially a pistol, just because it would be just so unique. And that's just incredible. And what was just shocking about this is probably the most exciting thing at SHOT Show. And all of these companies that go to this SHOT Show, I'm going to call them out, like the Firearms Blog, and a lot of these big gun industry YouTuber type dudes. And this one guy who hasn't made videos in years decided right before SHOT, he's like, I'm back in the YouTube video business. And you could tell he went downstairs to where all the cheap stuff is, the little cheap vendors, and found this little company, Pindad, and he's like, they're doing FNCs. And this thing has exploded. And now all of a sudden, like, Ian McCollum had to run down there and do a video. The Firearms Blog still hasn't talked about one yet, I don't think. And it's just like, like this, y'all dropped the ball on this one. And I just, because if it hadn't have been for that guy, for this burst, I'll have his video up at our website. And this video is hilarious. Not in a mean way, but so the guy from Burst Review, he's done this a long time. He's a professional. He really is. And he's a real quote gun writer. And he's talking to this guy from Pindad, and you can tell that the guy from Pindad, if you start to listen to him answer questions, doesn't speak English. Like, he can maybe pick up one word or a couple words. It's like price. And so he'll pick out one word in a sentence and try to answer based off that word, but he can't comprehend the entire sentence that he's being asked. And it's just kind of funny. But but this guy's, he's here and he's representing Pindad, and they're making these guns, and I think it's the most exciting thing at SHOT Show I've seen in a long, long time. And all the major news outlets missed it because today's Friday. And it's over, and they still haven't published it. Well, we've gone long enough. Let me just go ahead and do a police blotter and go ahead and toss this one. You know what? Let me say this one thing real quick. I'm a gentleman of a certain age. I think I'm 53 now. I think I'm 53. And I remember a movie called Roadhouse. Yeah, Roadhouse. And it was a Patrick Swayze movie. And Patrick Swayze he is, and essentially he's a bouncer in this movie, but he's like the boss of the bouncers. So in this movie, the boss of the bouncers is called the Cooler. I got news for you. I've worked as a bouncer. I've never heard anybody known as a Cooler. We're all just like bouncers, but whatever. So, but anyway, it's this kind of this 80s karate movie, Patrick Swayze thing, and it's like there's a bar in it. There's a reference to a bar, and we used to use this when I was working. Reference to the double douche. So just like I haven't seen hardly any movies made after 1990, but Roadhouse, I know probably every line from that movie. Well, it turns out they've remade the movie. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal in it, Brokeback Mountain guy, which okay, whatever. And it's the bad guy, the anti. We're going to use literature. We'll refer to this like it's literature. The antagonist in this movie is none other than Conor McGregor. The UFC fighter that can shit talk. But here's the thing. So Conor McGregor is in this movie as, from the trailers I've seen, is in this movie as the bad guy. And I don't know what the hell has happened to Conor McGregor, but he is juiced out of his fucking mind. I don't remember what weight class he used to fight in UFC, or if ever he's going to fight in UFC ever again. But I guess maybe he's decided, he's roided out. He looks like he's put on 30 pounds of muscle, 25 pounds. He's like, he is literally swole. And, on the internet, I literally just detected the trailers for this yesterday. And it's like, people are all upset. Oh, they have to remake and ruin every movie. I gotta admit, I'm gonna watch the movie. Will I go to the movie theater to watch it? No, but if it shows up on the internet, I'll pay some money to watch and see if they make a reference to the double douche. So hopefully, some of you will get to see that movie and enjoy it as well. Hopefully, it isn't terrible. If nothing else, just so you can see swole Conor McGregor. My God, he will never pass a USADA test now. There is no way. Dude, his sweat would pop positive. You trust me, you have to see it. You have to see the trailer. So, okay, let's do the police blotter and go ahead and toss this one out. This one's just going to be real quick. Just a follow-up really of some stuff that, we've talked about in the past. Well, except for the first one. There's a story that's come out. They just did I don't remember what state this was in. For a death row, execution, and I don't know, the hippies have come up with some idea. They want to use, I don't know, laughing gas or some kind of gas to, hypox this guy out and just kill him. And apparently it took 22 minutes for this guy to die and convulsing and all this stuff. And it's like, all this drama. Now it's back to the Supreme Court, and not humane and all this and all that. And it's like, in the old days, you used to just line dudes up and shoot them. And now that you think about it, looks pretty humane, doesn't it? So just food for thought on that one. Second thing is, we had covered a story. I think this was out of New York. There was some teenagers or early 20-something kids, essentially they're kids, and they were looking to go someplace out in the boonies, and they went up this driveway thinking it was a road. For some reason, trying to find somebody's house, and it turned out to be someone's driveway. And the man the man at the house, he shot at the cars, and I guess people turn up this man's driveway all the time, so he gets really irritated about it. And he's been convicted of I think second-degree murder. His defense was, the first shot he fired in the air was a warning shot, but he didn't mean to fire the second shot that actually struck and killed like this 20-year-old girl with his really long-ass barreled hunting shotgun, off the porch of his house. And it's like, this is like one of those, these aren't my pants. Yeah, that dope. These aren't my pants. I don't know what dope is in these pockets. These aren't my pants. I borrowed these pants. Like, okay, whatever. That shit doesn't work. So, what's the lesson? Don't shoot people that don't need to be shot. Okay? I understand they came over your driveway, you're not happy, you're pissed off about it. Buy a goddamn gate, asshole. Like, come on. What was this? Like, just even, it's just a good rule of thumb. Let me leave it for the young kids out there as someone who has definitely been in situations where I could have legally shot people easily. Not that I'm afraid to shoot people, because I'm certainly not, but I'm able to judge in individual situations, not just, this if then else condition that people talk about on the internet. I'm like, I don't need to fucking shoot this guy. Blink of an eye I could, but I could just tell. I could legally shoot him. It's like, at this exact moment, he doesn't need to be shot. And I think that's a good rule of thumb in life that you should always keep in the back of your mind. That is kind of a catch-all to get you out of the logic circles of some of these traps that people will put you in. Don't shoot people that don't need to be shot. However, the inverse of that is true. People that need to be shot, just shoot their ass. Get it over. Okay, final thing. This is a reference to really kind of a lot of things that have been going on around here. Talking about, getting out of the city, moving the business, making a lot of changes, the political climate in Hamilton County. There's been some, we mentioned it once, maybe a few months ago. So you'll see news stories around the country, primarily in Chicago, but other places. If you live in a big city, you know this as well. But there's a trend where the kids, I'm old man say that, the kids are using social media, their phones or whatever they're doing, and they'll show up someplace and they'll do these street takeovers where there could be 15 cars doing burnouts and donuts in the middle of intersections, or they'll do it in the middle of the highway. Well, this has become a big problem in Cincinnati. And so what's happened is it was suggested to me on social media. There is a Instagram channel. Yeah, it's a channel, right? Instagram page that was suggested to John 1911 because we're in Cincinnati. And it is literally a page that seems to coordinate or at least document all these street takeovers that happen in Cincinnati. And I was watching it and I'm like, I think every street corner, every parking lot on this, every video, I recognize every one of these places. John 911 used to be pretty close to one of these places. And we're going to post the link up, on our in the comment section for this episode on the website. But I want you to look at this, and I just want you to think about, what has happened to cities since, say, I don't know, was it 2020? When they started a certain there is no doubt that a certain political it's no doubt that there is a group of people politically that thought they would benefit by essentially wrecking neighborhoods and wrecking cities. And here we are now, it's 2024, and so many of these cities are just in big trouble. Because now it's not just a crime, it's the economics, and then the inflation, and then the spiraling politics, and you've got prosecutors that don't put people in jail, and it's just a shit show. And what I think a lot of young people today don't understand is what's happening to the cities, unfortunately, in America right now is really kind of the normal. Places like New York and Chicago and LA used to be shithole. In the 70s, any cop that worked in the 70s and 80s, even like look at the movies and look at the rappers and look at the pop culture of the time. It was very dangerous, a lot of violence, a lot of drugs, and it was reflected in media. And then, you go into the 90s and the 2000s, people like Giuliani and a lot of people, they cleaned up these cities and you could live an urban lifestyle. Again, like in media, like these TV shows like Sex and the City, like I'm a young single woman and I'm living in this town and, her dating life and whatever. That young single woman today, she moved to Austin. She moved to Nashville. She got the hell out of there. That's over. and that's coming to Cincinnati. You look at this Instagram channel, baby, it's here in Cincinnati. So this wraps up episode 329 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures of links or street takeovers, please go to the website, john1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good night.